Mayor Lot.
Okay. Call the regular meeting of Council of August 9th, 2023 to order at 6 o'clock. And I'd like to start with the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the town of Winnipeg Beach is located on First Nations Treaty 1 territory, the traditional territory and ancestral land of the Anishinaabe, the Cree, the Ojibwe, the Dakota, and the Dene people, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. We respect the treaties made on these territories. We dedicate ourselves to move forward with Indigenous communities in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration to make Manitoba an inclusive and accessible place for everyone who lives here.
Be it resolved that the agenda for the August 9th regular meeting of council be approved as per the following additions. Addition, Fire Chief July Report. Addition, EMO Information Sharing Agreement. Addition, EMO Mitigation Projects. Addition, Fire Department Water Rescue Quote.
Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Kozlowski. Can I get a seconder, please? Councillor Jarvis. Questions, concerns, points of discussion? All in favor? Carried.
Be it hereby resolved that the minutes of the July 26, 2023 regular meeting be approved as circulated.
Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Jarvis. Can I get a seconder, please? Councillor Gould. I trust everybody's had an opportunity to review the minutes. Questions, comments, points of discussion? No? All in favor? Carried.
Be it hereby resolved that council approves the accounts payable listing being check number 21689 to 21766, inclusive of checks, electronic payments, and payroll issued in the amount of $130,271.42 as circulated.
Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Jarvis. A seconder, please. Councillor Kozlowski. I trust that everybody's had an opportunity to review the accounts payable. Questions, comments, points of discussion? Councillor Jarvis.
Yeah, the checks for the porta potties, is that standard procedure?
So this year, in reference to the issues that we're having at the washrooms, the park washrooms, there were an additional 10 porta potties rented for boardwalk days this year. So that's not normal process.
No, and the security, is that normal as well?
I believe security has always been part of the process. And it has been without incident for the most part with boardwalk days as a result of the increased security.
Okay.
Other questions, comments? Councillor Kozlowski?
Yeah, I did notice that they did pay one of the bands that haven't played yet. I don't know when this payment comes out for Bed of Roses that play this weekend.
Yeah.
So when are these checks sent out?
So what happens, my understanding is after the band plays is when the check is presented. So since it does require 2 signatures and we go through the account process, we have the checks ready to go and signed. And after the band is played, then that's what I believe Carissa pays the band. So they need to be ready to go.
Other questions, points of discussion? All in favor? Carried.
Whereas the town of Winnipeg Beach will on September 28th, 2023, 10 a.m. proceed to sell properties that are not redeemed from tax sale by public auction. And whereas pursuant to section 372 of the Municipal Act, a municipality may set a reserve bid in the amount of tax arrears and costs in respect of the property. Therefore be it resolved, the town of Winnipeg Beach place a reserve bid on roll number 79500 and roll number 171922 in the amount of all arrears and costs in respect of the property.
Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Jarvis. Get a seconder, please. Councillor Houle. Discussion. All in favor? Carried.
So unfinished business 8.2, Boundary Creek Prospect Bridge news release for information for council. That the item was posted on social media and website. Item 8.3, Municipal Capacity Building Fund. We were declined our grant request for the Municipal Capacity Building Fund. That fund was in reference to the GIS systems for Public Works Department.
And did they give a reason why they declined us?
I believe that these were declined as a result of not having the audits to date.
Okay, thank you.
ITA hosting, whereas a request for council support from Interlake Tourism Association, ITA, has been received to have the October Interlake Connections Forum held at a venue in Winnipeg Beach. And whereas there is no cost to the town or staff time required, and whereas council supports business growth and development, therefore be it resolved that council support ITA hosting the October Interlake Connections Forum in Winnipeg Beach, and further be it resolved council commits to attendance providing no schedule conflicts arise.
Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Houle. Get a seconder, please. Councillor Kozlowski. Discussion. You're looking like you might have a question, Councillor Kozlowski?
No.
Okay. You good? Anybody else? Okay. All in favor? Carried.
Whereas Resolution 2023-191 authorized the purchase of a 2014 McLean Engineering articulating sidewalk tractor and various attachments, and whereas Council agreed to payment terms of 48 months, therefore be it resolved, Council authorized the CAO to sign the lease agreement with RCAP Leasing.
Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Jarvis. Can I get a seconder, please? Councillor Kozlowski. Discussion.
We talked about this
Yeah.
already.
Okay. All in favor? Carried.
Eight 8.6 unfinished business report. No resolution required. Any comments?
No, I think you're doing a great job tracking all this stuff for sure. It's a good process, thank you.
It's like, a couple of things have been done on there, but this is just like for future reference or.
Yeah, so some of the ones like with the golf carts, it's just on the patio license
Yeah,
review.
we've talked about some of these
Yeah.
things, yeah. And-
But the due date to actually review them are stating like in February of 24, January of 24. But if I just leave them on the report, just because I have no way of segregating it right now.
Right.
Like the system we're using through AllNet meetings isn't ideal for the tracking of unfinished business, but it's what we have available right now without spending any staff time to create a different format in Excel or something at this point. So I do expect this report to change as more in the action items and having a more in-depth of the steps that have taken, the dates they've taken. It's just, we just at this time don't have any time available to address a new reporting system for the unfinished business.
Now, some of the things that are on there though, we can discuss, like with bike racks and things.
Yeah, if you would like to discuss
Like-
that.
No, I thought like, because some of the stuff I thought was unfinished before, meaning that, you know, we were in the process of looking or getting answers to some of the questions. Okay, so can we raise these things? Because I think, just for the record, the post office boxes are on there, and they're in and they're using them.
Yeah, and we
But it's
haven't
still on
gotten-
the unfinished business report.
Because the town has not received, like the administration has not received anything formal. So if the post office boxes are now in, although we haven't received a reply from our letter, I didn't know that, right? So I can remove that item going forward.
Yeah, because they're assigned already.
Just like the bike racks where parks have indicated that they have now been deployed in the park, so I will close that item.
When did they say, sorry, but when did they say they're deployed? Because the bikes are all over the boardwalk on the weekend.
He didn't give specifics. I did send the manager an email, and he said in reference to inquiring about the use of the bike racks, and he has just informed me that they have been deployed in the park.
And so I think the bigger question, Councillor Jarvis, is whether the bike racks that the town, or pardon me, that the park has deployed are sufficient for town, and if not, we need to have a further conversation here about what town wants to do about increasing the bike racks. But what I understand so far is that the park has said whatever bike racks they have, they've already put out.
Okay. Is there any, and there's no way that we could get them to verify? I haven't seen any bike racks or any of those. I counted 17 bikes on the,
Okay.
and they're everywhere.
Right. So that just sort of highlights the issue that as a town, we probably have to look at bike racks for next year.
Okay.
Councillor Kozlowski.
Yeah, in regards to the bike racks, I brought up before in another meeting with council, one of the restaurants, the bike racks, and I took pictures here, you can pass them around here. You might have a foot to walk around those bikes, if that, and it's going to be a safety problem for any kids that are running or whatever. And if all the restaurants downtown or buildings do that, we're going to be in trouble. So something should be done at that rack. You can pass the pictures along to the guys.
Councillor Jarvis.
Would it be possible to move this thing to an agenda, so we could get some of this stuff off, like on the next meeting or the next?
Well, I think that one of the difficulties is that the office has been so busy with all of the other things that they've been doing and trying to get the audits done and trying to get the finances done and everything else, that they are getting to these things as they can. And certainly it's not a pressing issue for this year, because the season's almost over. So certainly for next year, by the time next spring comes along, we will obviously have issues around the bike racks more resolved.
If there's specific action council would like me to bring forward though, I need the specific action you're asking of me. So I was given specific action about inquiring about the bike racks that were in the park compound, and that's what I did. So if there's, what other specific action is council asking for?
Would it be possible, and I think you have spoken with Mayor Jackson, but to put together some sort of, and I'll draft out a letter for what I think that the park needs to become involved in, like to fix some of these things with reference to garbage can, like waste receptacles, bicycle racks, fire pits, you know what I mean? Because it just, it's and I'll put it in perspective. It's a gong show out there now on a Saturday or Sunday when you walk along that boardwalk. There's bikes, there's all kinds of stuff, and it just piled up everywhere, and it just.
So is council looking to schedule a meeting with parks?
Well, we had one meeting with them.
We had one meeting with them.
Right.
Well, I think it begs the bigger question though, and I think this is something that you and I discussed as well. I mean, that area is Parks area. It is on the edge of our town. But I think we need to have a bigger discussion in terms of how much we feel we can be asking the park to do on their own property. So in terms of having appropriate fire pits, Park's going to make decisions about what Parks thinks the park should do in their park, and they're not necessarily going to be open to.
In the event that there's a problem there, the town responds. Do you know what I mean? Like when there's a situation that is on park property, they don't respond to that. You know what I mean? But they're part and parcel. We share space with them. A lot of space. But they, in some instances, when I say like even they take advantage of us being there. You know, like for us to supply washrooms, example, even though Boardwalk Days is our responsibility, but their washrooms are inoperable. I mean, suddenly we're bearing costs that are directly associated to the park. I mean, there has to be some sort of a better working relationship.
So is this something that we need to be putting on a future agenda for full
That's what I'm
discussion?
discussing, like some of these things I believe need to be actually designated some time to fix this. You know, like, they're filling up all our town garbages because they don't have enough garbage cans. And if you can just ask the people that change our garbage cans on Main Street, they're filled with pizza boxes, they're filled with all kinds of stuff.
Mhm.
And not pizza boxes from this town, but they're filled with all kinds of cardboard containers that they bring and so on and so forth. And we're having to invest time and energy and money into fixing that. And it might be as simple as they can put in their own garbage cans. You know, we have, and I that's how my question, I think we should probably designate some time
Okay,
to get a little more
okay,
cooperation.
so we can put it on a future agenda.
This as well, future agenda?
Bike racks, whether we, yeah.
August 23rd agenda, is that what council would like these items to be on?
I think I agree with Mayor Jackson. I think you can send it to like first meeting in September. You know, we got a lot of things going on. I just want to make sure that before this is all closed up, that they got to come to the table. I think they have to come to the table with some equipment, bike racks and garbage cans and all kinds of things. Because ours are just, we're getting
This
crushed.
has no handshake. This is solid.
Yeah.
Councillor Clausen.
Have we given the provincial town their pictures back? Have we taken?
Or the archival pictures.
The archives, have we given them back? So I understood that the town has taken the pictures out of there. The last meeting we had with the province. Have they been given back to the
No,
province?
so
When I was
those-
here a couple of weeks ago, they were still.
Right, so those signs were part of that project, and we have made contact with Parks representation within their signage as part of that grant to redo that in a more accessible format, which will include Braille and links to Audible in multi-language. So they have not been reinstalled, as those are the signs that are slated as part of that grant project. So we have been approved for that grant. We have not received the full agreement at this point. So for us to be able to sign that agreement, once we receive the full agreement, we can then move forward on with that project in conjunction with the Heritage Society to have those signs redone and then reinstalled.
And the second question is, and this was brought up in council before, taxpayers only allowed in town forums. They have no say in our town. Just like everyone else, every other government, not governments, I guess contracts, whatever, you have the people that are paying taxes that are allowed in. So I think we should be doing the same. Taxpayers only get to voice their opinions that pay taxes to it.
So that's
And
not,
whether that's a motion or whatever.
so that's not on the agenda right now?
No, but that should have been on the old business, because it was nothing before it.
Okay. Anything else under unfinished business? Okay, let's move on.
Municipal Economic Development Infrastructure Program. So this is a new program that's been in place. The funding opportunity is excellent. When we look at some of the needs of this community and the parameters from that grant, there are a few things that are of benefit, and specifically in reference to that there is no cap for what the municipality can request. In discussions and looking at the parameters of the grant, there is specific criteria. One of the items that make the most sense is under the renewal portion of public safety, and they do list fire stations. And so when we recognize, and as you can see from the fire chief's report. He did give an in-depth review of the equipment and the machinery that the fire department does have. This grant will cover funds for new fire trucks, providing they are at its end of life, which and the replacement will meet the new safety standards, which is the goal of the new purchases. The other piece that we have that was brought forward through the insurance review is the exhaust system in the fire hall. I do have a quote for that dated April of 23, so not sure where that lies, but that quote in reference to that was well over 81,000. So the recommendation at this point, and a full report will follow. This information was given to council, so first heard, deferred. But do expect a report from both myself and the fire chief in reference to taking advantage of this grant for the purpose of a new pumper, tanker, and the exhaust system.
So if people want to take an opportunity to read this, Councillor Kozlowski?
Yeah, do we have to match like 50% of the grant?
It's not stating, so there is no cap. So, I mean, going through that, this is new. And when although, you know, it says that there is no cap amount of funding, we do have to keep in mind that when they're vetting the grant applications, and depending how much you're asking for, no contribution probably won't vet well and you may not be approved. So just because we do submit a grant application, there's no guarantee that we are approved. So I will be looking at some numbers. Again, this was just sort of sprung through there and looking through that of actually getting some tangibles. I do have some questions, an email off to see if we can lump several projects together under like a fire department rejuvenation project, although the scopes of work, or is the scopes of work require two separate grants? I'm not sure on that. So as I get more information, an additional report will follow, but without a doubt, when we look at the costs for a new pumper and tanker, not taking advantage of this potential grant opportunity would, I think would be imprudent, so.
Yeah, I think the cap's referring to, we can go 100, 200,000, whatever, but I'm sure we have to come up with 50%.
No.
I don't think there's any grants I know that give you zero.
Councillor Kozlowski, this is actually a grant where there isn't a requirement for a percentage. What they're actually saying is we need to secure some federal funding, which we may or may not be able to do through our gas tax that we already have, that we need to decide how much we can contribute.
How much we can contribute.
How much we need to decide how much we can contribute, and then they will do the rest. But there is no expectation of 50-50. The expectation could be 20-80. It could be 10-90. It could be 30-70. They are saying that this is one of the grants that they're coming through with where there's no expectation for matching funding.
And this is a federal grant?
This is a provincial grant.
It's provincial. So federal funds would be eligible, being federal funds being gas tax monies would be eligible to stack with this grant. Some other funding, any other though municipal funding, I believe is not stackable. But it is based on, it says, this project, it funds municipalities based on their demonstrated level of need. And because of that particular criteria being in the forefront, and I think looking at especially the impact of the 2023 taxation, it clearly, and the lack of fire reserve funds available, I think that we clearly could demonstrate, and the end of the useful life of the equipment, as well as the insurance, talking about the an independent insurer talking about the safety need of the building. I think we have a fairly good opportunity for our grant to be approved, but I can't say at a 0% contribution. That much I don't know, because this is new, and so I can't pull from someone to find out what that vetting process looks like. So I
that
think,
percentage, whatever it may be, 20, 30, 10, 15, whatever, was that allotted for the budget this year?
so no, it wasn't, and nor would this project commence. So I mean, when they're looking at the due date of this grant application is October 6th, I don't anticipate us knowing approval if we get it before December 31st for the approval process, because there will be a lot of municipalities applying for this grant. The sooner we apply, I believe, the better for us. I don't know, and that's what I'm saying, when we look at how new this is, I do have an email out to look at that process. Are they waiting up until October 6th before they review all the grant applications? Are they reviewing grant applications as they get them? Are they approving grant applications prior to October 6th? None of that was explained. And so I don't have any information, like in the information I have been provided regarding this grant, none of that is clear. So it's still a lot of unknowns with that, but I do encourage council to look at that, and specifically for the fire department.
Okay, thank you.
So I will table this item for the next meeting. So, Winnipeg Beach Urban Policing Grant. Whereas the town of Winnipeg Beach has received an increase in urban policing grant for 2023, and whereas this increased revenue was not accounted for in the 2023 financial plan, therefore be it resolved that council utilize the funds as follows. And up for council discussion.
Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Jarvis. Can I get a seconder, please? Councillor Cool. Discussion, you will notice that our CAO provided us with some information and recommendations in terms of the use of this grant, that people have an opportunity to review it. Discussion? Councillor Jarvis?
Put it in reserves.
You see that the CAO's recommendation is that we do additional hours for our bylaw enforcement officer to specifically address the noise and nuisance complaints. She also is recommending that the cost of enforcement be covered, and that the remainder of the funds be allocated to a safety reserve, or at minimum the general reserve, to be used to offset additional. So we're looking at all of that. So what are people's thoughts on that?
I think it's nice they're giving us money. Getting it from everybody. For sure into the, reserve fund, in case we need it for something else later on down the line.
Okay.
I don't know about the bylaw officer, if he's going to be able to increase his time with his town, or...
Well, if you read, if you were able to review the agenda, you'll see that there's also a report from him in terms of his ability to increase his time.
Yeah.
And so with the complaints we've been getting around noise and complaints about our bylaw officer being unavailable, that's, as we were talking about last council meeting, is because his hours are so restrictive. And if we want to set a precedent that Winnipeg Beach isn't open for parties until 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and disturbing their neighbors, we have the bylaw enforcement officer available Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays, I think, or Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, from 9 until midnight or 10 till 1, who's constantly policing all of the areas, the piers, the west side, on a regular basis. Then that might stop a lot of the noise complaints, fireworks, partying things, and set a different tone in our community. And so I think one of the recommendations that the CAO is making is that we use, I think it comes to a total of just under $2,000 to increase his time until after the September long weekend to deal with noise and nuisance complaints. And then, so that would be 3,000, no, pardon me, that would be 2,000 of the 7,800 that we've been given. And the second pardon, 78,000. The second recommendation is that if the cost of the enforcement bylaw exceeds the $3,000 that we budgeted, because we are asking our bylaw officer to take more time to do the enforcement piece, that we will have some money to cover the enforcement, and that the remainder be allocated to a safety reserve. That's the suggestion on the table. So people's thoughts, Councillor
Do
Kozlowski.
we know how many hours he puts in Gimli and other surrounding areas? Like, has he got enough time for us to do?
So he did state that he did provide me a schedule of time. Because his extra hours do not include mileage, it's more like a 3-hour call out at a time. So he did state that he is prepared to do whatever we require him to do. I know he did state that he is scheduled in Gimli to close the beach, but I believe that ends at 10. So he certainly would be able to be here for, he's got 9 till midnight. But he said he is flexible with that, but he is requesting that the extra shifts be at minimum 3 hours, so on the days that we require. So we did hear a lot at the Town Hall Forum, as well as residents coming in to the office talking about the excessive noise at the public places, specifically at the pier locations, Maple and Main Street, and that there is no level of enforcement. And so we, through review of the bylaw officer's hours last meeting, we can see he doesn't have the time permitted to be on call. So this is an opportunity to give back to those residents who have some concerns regarding the noise at no cost, because this is revenue that wasn't accounted for. So it may go a long way of trying to look at seeing how effective that is at no cost to the residents. But
Councillor Jarvis?
So of the $78,000 in excess, so to speak, he's looking at just over 3,000. We would invest just over 3,000 of that.
2,000.
No, I think it says 3,000, doesn't it?
No.
so he's depending, and so this is a quote based on his schedule. Council can choose what that schedule looks like. If you're looking at every night he's patrolling, are you looking at every second? Like you?
Oh, no.
He's accommodating through that.
No, I read his whole thing.
So the second recommendation in reference to what I'm stating is that we did budget $3,000 in legal fees for our enforcement bylaws revisions. I do expect that we may exceed that amount, and so what I'm suggesting, and until we actually go through the full process through everything, there are still some bylaws that we are looking at that hasn't come forward yet. I'm suggesting that anything over that exceeds that 3,000, we utilize the additional revenue to offset those costs that overrun.
Yeah, I just wanted to, and I'm for all that. I just wanted to make sure that we have a big chunk in there for, like, the bulk of that goes into
Correct.
a reserve right now, because I think there's other things that we need to look at in addition to the safety officer.
Absolutely.
What I don't want to do is, we have an opportunity to bank some money for future projects that we haven't even discussed, and that would be an ideal opportunity for us
Absolutely.
to have that money there.
100%.
So I just want to make sure that we're, whatever, and I agree, we had situations every single night for the last 4 nights on Main Street. Last night was 3 in the morning, 2 nights ago was 5:30 in the morning. So these things are out there, and we know they're out there, but there's other things that we can look at in the future too. So as long as, and we can't, what I don't want to do is keep going back to the taxpayer to make sure that we're funding some of these programs. If we have an opportunity to put some money in the bank, let's put some money in the bank.
Absolutely, and that's why, I mean, $78,000 is a good chunk of change. And if we can increase patrolling for the noise for just under 2,000 for the remainder of the season, that would be good. And it certainly would not diminish the $78,000 by very much, which is why we can then put the rest in reserves. None of this is gonna cost the taxpayers.
Yeah, and I think we need to look at some surveillance issues too on Main Street. With street racing and so on and so forth, and, I mean, it's the old radar camera concept, you know what I mean? You're taking a picture of a car doing something.
So we might be able to talk about that in a future
No, that's what I
meeting.
mean, as long as there's money, yeah, because, yeah,
But at
it's
this
one thing
point-
to have him walking around, but I mean, if he's in a foot chase with 5 different people and they're going 5 different directions, 4 people get away,
Right.
you know what I mean, so.
So at this point, the question before us is, what do we want to do with the recommendation made by our CAO in terms of the use of the $78,354?
I think C was the option, all of them.
So my recommendations were, your options were to approve the CAO recommendations, or approve some of the CAO recommendations, or 3, just leave the additional grant monies as revenue, which is not recommended.
No.
Correct.
Right,
So-
sorry, my fault.
Okay, so,
So there were 3 recommendations made. 1, to increase the presence of bylaw officer strictly for noise and nuisance during that period past our noise bylaw at the public spaces. Use if the budget line for the legal fees for the enforcement bylaws exceeds the allotted budget, then to utilize that revenue to offset that overrun, and then the remainder of the funds go into a reserve.
I
So
agree with that.
all,
So-
what, all 1, 2, or 3, or all? Like,
Can we do 1 and 2, or?
council can do whatever they like,
Yeah, like, I agree for the additional hours.
okay?
I agree to use some of it if we need to for the legal cost of the bylaws, and then the rest, I believe, should go into a reserve.
And that's
so
what
that's
all,
what, that's what option
recommended.
number.
But that's what I
yes.
thought, yeah, when I said all,
Yeah, that's
let's
what,
do all.
that's
So
what
you're
option.
approving the CAO's recommendation?
Yes, I would approve that.
Councillor Gould, Councillor Kozlowski.
What is it to go to the lawyer for, like, just to write written up?
To write.
So the reason we do that, when we're talking about enforcement bylaws, the biggest challenge of any kind of bylaw that council has is the enforcement. And so when we're looking at making sure, there's no point in having a bylaw that does not meet the requirements from a legal standpoint. And so when we look at going through the lawyer, it's because when we hold someone to task on one of the bylaws, council needs to ensure we will win. And the only way that happens is if the lawyer reviews the bylaws in place, has the parameters in place, because it will be the lawyer that will need to defend that lawyer or that incident if it's non-compliant. And that's the reason for that.
Okay, thanks.
Any further discussion on this?
I would, sorry, I'm gonna go with,
Councillor Moe?
again, option 1. But I'm hoping to hear less concerns about the bylaw officer not answering his phone. That's a big one for me.
Councillor Kozlowski,
Yeah, I don't know if anything's been said lately.
in terms of which option would you,
Oh, the
Support.
options. I'd say like all 3 of them.
okay, so option 1.
So therefore be it resolved that council utilize the funds as per the CAO's recommendations.
Yes. However, I would like to do an addendum to that as opposed to the hours being from 9 to 12, given that our noise bylaw doesn't start until 11 o'clock at night, that maybe his patrols can be from 10 until 1 or from 11 until 2, but as opposed to 9 to 12.
Okay.
It sounds like he might have a conflict anyways if he has to close the beach and give him at 10 o'clock. And so maybe after he finishes closing the beach at 10 o'clock, he can come here and do it from 10:30 till 1:30 or whatever
Okay.
best suits him. So the resolution is stating utilize the funds as recommended by the CAO.
Correct. So the last sentence, therefore be it resolved that council utilize the funds as per the CAO recommendations.
All in favor? Carried.
Whereas the property tax due date for Winnipeg Beach is August 31st, 2023, and whereas council recognizes some properties were impacted by both assessment increase and mill rate increase, therefore be it resolved that council authorize interest reprieve until October 31st, 2023 for any outstanding tax amounts on properties that have paid the equivalent of their 2022 tax amount by August 31st, 2023.
Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Kozlowski. Need a seconder, please, Councillor Hu. Discussion. All in favor? Carried.
AMM 2022-2023 and memorandum.
It's easy for you to say.
It's
You're
like
just doing so well.
memoriam.
And then this happened.
Blah, blah, blah.
Blah, 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 blah.
Professional.
So you got the names that I gave.
I do have the names that have been provided.
And Councillor Jarvis, are you going to be able to provide the dates as our resident
Yep.
historian?
Yep.
For all three?
Correct.
Thank you.
And if we are reaching out for contact, photo would probably be great, because I can't state that I will have images, digital images that I can send to AMM. Accessibility plans requirement to update. I've just put that on council agenda for council to be aware of additional work commitments required by administration before year end. Donation request. Whereas a request for donation has been received by the town of Winnipeg Beach, therefore be it resolved that council for the town of Winnipeg Beach authorize a donation in the amount of $300 to the Kiwanis Club.
Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Jarvis. The seconder, please. Councillor Kozlowski. Discussion? Councillor Kozlowski.
You going in the tank?
Not on your life. Other discussion?
I paid the $300 myself.
Councillor Cool, do we need to speak after the meeting?
Possibly now.
Now, who is gonna be in the duck tank?
The fire chiefs.
Oh, and your name was on there too.
Excellent. Excellent.
Better be a warm day.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
We have the municipal relations outstanding audit letter and CAO reply email just for council review.
Good job.
Good job.
Minister of Municipal Relations, one-time funding. So again, we did receive unexpected one-time funding in the amount of $110,000. There's no report for this, as I did just receive this on Friday. So do expect this item to be tabled with additional reports for those funds as well, very similar to the policing grant top-up.
And there's no matching funds required for this? It's just $110,000?
Yeah, so it's just a one-time funding opportunity.
Yeah.
There's no applying, it's an automatic that's being dispersed, and how they've set their funding, if it was per capita.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's just for infrastructure, correct?
So it is for infrastructure. They do make it clear that the intended, for the funds, the intent is in reference with any projects that the community may have applied under the ICIP, like the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program. The last intake for that program was September of 2019. So I do not know if there was a burning project that this community applied through ICIP for and just wasn't funded. But it also makes reference to sewer and water projects administered by the Water Services Board. So we know there's a good chance that as we move forward with 23 and looking at we did budget for the flow meter, but if there is additional funds needed to move forward, I suspect that at best we put that into the sewer and water reserve to be utilized at a later date, or any of the projects that, if when we look at our wells, we know that there is some deficiencies within our utility. I don't think that this amount is going to address some of the big issues in the utilities, specifically when we look at the water treatment plant and the fact that we have no reservoir. This won't cover that, so we have to look at what we can do, what we can't do, and what we want to do at a later date, and then decide the priorities based on that. So I haven't looked back at all. I know there were numerous projects through Water Services Board that the town of Winnipeg Beach over the last few years has been actively working with. So I would need to sort of review those projects, and then I can provide a report for council consideration at a later date. But without a doubt, if we do not move on this, the recommendation is it goes to reserve and not just to offset operations. Sure. Our RBC LiDAR training workshop, be it hereby resolved that council approve 2 members of the Public Works Department to attend the LiDAR data workshop being held in East St. Paul on September 12th or September 13th, 2023 from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. with no registration fee. Out-of-pocket expenses and travel per diem are applicable.
Can I get a mover, please? Mr. Jarvis. Seconder, please. Seconder, please. Councillor Coe. All in favor?
That's that.
So it's a different system. I think it's for mapping purposes. And so I don't know much about the LiDAR itself, but it is like I don't want to say like a drone, but it's almost like it's through satellite and it's taking depths. Yeah, depths of,
Yeah.
right, so when you're looking at mapping.
I think we discussed this before, right?
Yeah, and
Just the acronym
initially,
threw me off.
yeah, and initially, there's 2 different ways to go about that, and I think, like I said, it is a free workshop, so I think that it makes sense for the Works Department to attend to see if it's what they think it is and if they support that or not.
Councillor Jarvis?
And unless I'm mistaken, you can actually rent this equipment too, right?
Well, actually, I'm sitting on Eastern Interlake Watershed District. They've taken a lot of the LiDAR measurements already, and this would be how to continue to do that and utilize that.
Okay. Yeah, I thought,
For
I
ditches
knew we
and-
talked about this
yeah.
stuff before, and I
It's
just
for-
want to make sure.
Yeah, it's for ditches and drainage.
Okay.
Be it resolved that council authorize the closure of the parking lane and sidewalk of Main Street and Robinson on one day in September for the purpose of hotel spray foam renovation. And further be it resolved, the property owner will supply the appropriate barricades to ensure public safety.
I'm gonna mover, please. Councillor Jarvis. The seconder, please. Councillor Kozlowski. I trust folks had an opportunity to read all the background information on this. Any further questions or discussion?
Are we able to provide a yes without a date?
Mhm.
So we're permitting that, we will permit that they close it, in reference to, just due to the scheduling for a project like such as this with the contractor and then the scheduling of council. I don't believe it would be prudent to call a special meeting just for this. So the administration will make sure that once we get a firm date, that we will be putting the public notice out both Facebook, on social media and website.
Councillor Jarvis?
I believe it'll be a weekday. They've already prepped the whole roof, so they're just waiting to get the date to do this.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Yes, so yeah. The electronic sign of Access Credit Union. So no resolution at this time until further direction of council. So we were provided, Access Credit Union has met with us. We know that they are relocating. They did inquire if there was any interest for the town to take over the electronic sign. We know that the electronic sign is not functioning. However, there is still a level of infrastructure that is there, that is still viable. We did receive 2 quotes. One of the quotes also gives a lease option as well. And so until further directive of council, if this is an item we are interested in or not.
So one of the things I wanted to say about this is we've been certainly talking as a council this term in terms of increasing our communication. I think it's been noted before that being able to have the sign out there to advertise when council meetings are, when public forums are, street closures, all of those kinds of things might be very helpful. Myself and the CAO we're looking at this and trying to break things down. Even if we were to do a lease on one of the options, it would cost us over $7,000 a year for a number of years to do that. And I think one of the balancing pieces for us is that we're wanting to cut back on our budget. We're not wanting to be increasing taxes. We're wanting to cut back on our budget. And while communication might be really important in terms of informing people about the things and the events that are happening in Winnipeg Beach to make sure everybody's informed, I'm not sure that this would be a wise expense at this point. I think that myself and Councillor Jarvis are working on getting a newsletter out 4 times a year. And that would be one way of meeting some of the communication needs. We do communicate over Facebook, although I am very aware of the fact that there are some seniors who live in our community who don't have computers, aren't on Facebook. But I think that we can find other ways of trying to communicate with folks, maybe having a few forums a year, a number of newsletters a year. My opinion is, while that sign is there and it's a good opportunity, we have no idea what next year's budget is going to look like. We have no idea what our expenses are going to be, and I'm not sure it's a very good decision at this point to go forward with this, but I would be certainly willing to hear from other folks. Councillor Jarvis.
I concur. I don't think we have any money whatsoever for
No, we
something
don't.
like that.
Councillor Hu, Councillor Kozlowski.
Yeah, I agree that we've got other commitments and projects to look at. Maybe somebody that's gonna take over that building might have some use for that sign or something with it. Maybe we can get in with them half and half. I think emails, like the mayor was saying, emails, or not emails, pamphlets, put it in everybody's mailbox. Would be a good idea to let them know what's going on. You know, or in the paper.
Okay.
Those kind of paper.
Councillor Hu?
I mean, I'm a techie guy, so I would
I
love
know.
to see a sign.
I know.
Just like I'd love to see a sign on the fire hall for people entering the park.
Yeah.
At some point.
Absolutely. Me too.
But understanding the budget, obviously it has to be put on.
Good.
So to be clear, are we saying that so are we asking Access to keep the infrastructure in case things change at a later date? Because they're looking for us if we are looking at taking ownership of that, or are they dismantling it when they, during the period when they leave?
Okay, one at a time, Councillor
Jarvis.
Councillor Jarvis first, then
I
Councillor
vote
Houle.
against anything, even with the infrastructure. By the time we can get at that, the technology might even change.
Councillor Houle.
I would leave the infrastructure in place.
I know it costs us.
Yeah, of course, there won't be.
Is there any requirement on our part from Access Credit Union to leave the infrastructure in place?
I think they just want to know what council wants, right? So if we weren't interested in the sign, you may want the infrastructure removed, right? So they just wanted a clear understanding of
So Councillor Houle, you're
what their
saying,
obligations are.
to leave the structure there. Councillor Jarvis, you're saying to take the structure away. Councillor Kozlowski?
Let's have Councillor Houle define infrastructure.
Yeah, to me, the infrastructure itself is the wiring, the power, all that stuff, leave it
And
up.
the poles.
And the poles and everything else. If they want to rip down that old sign, then that's fine. But I would leave the
Let's hire
infrastructure in place.
One at a time, please, Councillor
Yeah.
Jarvis. So you're not talking about the structure, the outdoor structure, you're talking about the indoor structure?
No, I'm talking about the outdoor structure, but leave all the wiring and all the power and everything to
Okay.
that pole itself.
Okay, Councillor Jarvis, or Councillor Kozlowski?
Yeah, I would say leave the whole thing up. Like I said, we don't know what's gonna happen with that building. We don't know. Maybe somebody else is gonna take it over. Maybe they'll have a use for it. Who knows, right? Then we can decide at a later date. And I'm sure it's not gonna cost that much money to take that thing.
Councillor Jarvis?
Theoretically, if we own that building,
You do?
we own the infrastructure. Theoretically, right?
There you go.
They put up the actual sign, but all that wiring and everything would be ours.
Well, they might have paid for it.
Yeah. It's so, it goes back quite some time with
Probably.
Noventus. So at this point, they're stating that that is their infrastructure as it's their sign, right? Like they're the ones who, Noventus, I believe, put that in, correct?
Should we present it to them with, just leave it? And if they say, well, there's gonna be a cost factor, then we can address that. Because I don't think right now, I mean, we could invest anything into it.
Correct, so I'm asking, in reference to the sign, they are looking for direction, and so now I've provided quotes if we wanted it to be functioning, and we move forward and take over the sign in its entirety, or if we are not interested in that sign, do we want them to remove the infrastructure or not?
Councillor Houle?
We're gonna save the money if we leave it all there anyway. So they're not gonna wanna spend the money to remove it.
Correct.
But if we put something up in the future, it'd be nice to have all that power,
Right.
et cetera,
Correct.
in place.
Okay,
And
so
so,
we will leave the infrastructure, we will not proceed with fixing
The sign.
the sign.
Perfect.
Clear. Additions, EMO information sharing agreement. Be it hereby resolved that council authorize the CAO to sign the EMO information sharing agreement as presented.
just wait a minute here, I lost my place.
Because we did not proceed.
Okay, so,
There's a few of those.
yeah. Have a mover, please. Councillor Jarvis. Have a seconder, please. Councillor Kozlowski. I trust everybody's had a chance to review the information. Discussion? All in favor? Carried.
So EMO mitigation projects, I've included this on the agenda as in upcoming meetings. We did apply for the mitigation and preparedness program, wherein the amount that the community as part of the DFA in conjunction, that was our portion for disaster, we are refunded providing we spend the money on mitigation. And so the EMO officer has provided the mitigation items for Winnipeg Beach. Please keep in mind that the MPP program provided us with $12,000 of funding. So a lot of the items that are listed under the mitigation may not be applicable for that. But I just wanted council to be aware of those projects.
And this is going to be coming up for further discussion for a decision later on in the day?
That, not today.
Later on.
At a future agenda. So I just wanted for council to review those items. So when a recommendation is coming forward in reference to utilizing the mitigation and preparedness program funds, you're aware of the options that we have available for that.
I'm sure folks are familiar with most of these recommendations, so if you could start thinking about it. I mean, again, it's only $12,000, but it's $12,000. Next. Councillor Jarvis.
So the stuff for the town of Winnipeg Beach, obviously everything that's on there is going to be in excess of 12,000. So the question is.
So looking through with that and recognizing that, what makes sense is in earlier in the agenda we did get, or no, I did not. Oh yeah, we didn't get another grant approved, but we did state that we did not get approved for a grant that we expected to for the GIS GPS system, and so since that is listed within here, it may. I just going to review that a bit further, but that is probably the recommendation that's going to be going forward. But we did expect to purchase that systems in order to do a lot of the infrastructure projects that we want to move forward on. So now that it's identified, at the time I did not know it was identified as a mitigation project. So this report coming forward from the EMO would allow us to utilize those funds from the MPP program to offset that cost, since we did not get the grant for that. But a formal report has not been provided to council yet.
And we are moving this for discussion at another time.
Yes.
It will be coming up at another agenda. So fire department and the water rescue quote. So there was discussion in reference to going through some of the budget meetings, as well as just some planning meetings of talking about having a water rescue service. When we looked at that new grant that came available, the fire chiefs started to look at getting some of the data needed for that grant project. And water rescue was one of the items for us to determine what are we looking at doing, and is this feasible. While he was researching, there happened to be a contractor who did have the required boat, motor, and trailer for water rescue, and it is at a fairly cost-effective quote. So for $18,000 to have the equipment, whereas we did expect for that program to be well in excess of that, and that's why we did not move forward on that. So as stated, first heard deferred, so this is new. This item will also be coming up for on the August 23rd agenda, with a report both from the fire department as well as myself in reference to this item. So I just wanted council to look at that and recognize that this is at a dealership, so there is no guarantee of here today, gone tomorrow, or if it will be available after, this item may not surface if it's not available. So.
Okay.
Other addition, as per council request, bandstand discussion.
We want that on the agenda?
Yeah.
Who's,
Okay, I'll quote that,
could you speak up?
yeah, the last few weeks, month, whatever, bands have been starting, some of them 7:30, most of them 7 o'clock. They go till 5 after 9, 10 after 9, 25 to 10 is the longest I've seen a band play this year. We're paying them good bucks. They're supposed to be playing, like as in previous years, for at least 3 hours, with maybe a 15, 20-minute break, 1 or 2 15, 20-minute breaks now. A lot of these bands we're paying $3,400, $3,500 for. Some are a lot cheaper, and the cheaper ones seem to play longer, and they're just as good as the other bands. I think what we should do is probably set a dollar figure on the bands in future years, have a contract that states the time they play. If they don't fulfill their contract, we do not pay them.
So, I mean, that might be one way of going. I think at the very least, what we need to do is take a look at the contracts that have been given to the bands this year and compare them to the contracts that have been used in the past. I do know that it was always, I think I know that it was always stated that they would play for 3 hours from 7 to 10. I'm not sure if that's what the current contracts are saying. So we need to do some research, and our CEO can work with our rec director to see what the contracts are currently saying, what they used to say, if there's been changes, and if there's been changes, why there's been changes. And then come back to council for a full discussion on this, because I have been hearing this year that the Saturday nights have become much shorter than they ever were before, and the costs are going up, and the amount of time they're playing is going down, so we do need to pay attention to this. Councillor Jarvis.
I concur with you and with Councillor Kozlowski. I've never ever seen a band leave an hour early, ever. And I've seen, and people just, they look absolutely gobsmacked when they say this is the last song. And you know, because I'm out there as well, and they're awestruck that they're leaving.
No, it's always been 7 to 10 with a break, a short break.
Well,
or two in the middle.
yeah.
And sometimes to 10:30 until the fireworks go
Well, the
off.
point I make is that I've seen 2 sets. You know what I mean? As little as 2 sets, and they're gone. And these are short sets.
Mhm.
Like one band was gone. I'm pretty sure it was 9:05.
Yeah.
And they were gone.
Yeah.
Like that just, you know, and they started late.
Yeah.
So
we'll, CEO will follow up on this and have the rec manager follow up on it and take it from there
yeah.
and come back to council for discussion.
People travel there. They bring their lawn chairs and everything. They
I
get
know,
here and they sit
I
down
know.
for an hour and a half, and all of a sudden it's over.
Absolutely. Did you want to say something?
You know?
You should.
I could go on.
I know.
Well,
But then
and
we don't need to.
please keep in mind,
Sure, we got lots of time.
we still have the vision survey, and it may be a change in the entire process that may be required, and wherein, again, where the community is paying for this function, the ratepayers are the ones who are paying for that, and when there's no revenue coming in from anyone who's enjoying it that are not taxpayers in the community. So aside from the contracts, we certainly can take a look at that, but if we are looking at what does the bandstand look like in 24 and going forward, there may be cuts, as is it every Saturday, and these are things for council consideration as well, aside from the contracts, or is the entire process streamlined, and stating, I do have challenge with a lot of the events, that I think it's great that the community runs a lot of the events. What I don't think is great is that the organization of all of these events and these functions are by paid staff. So to me, I think that when we look at the weekend work and the hours that are spent, a lot of smaller communities do have committees, volunteer committee base, that thrive on organizing these kinds of events and looking for ways for fundraising. And I feel that possibly some of the fundraising opportunities are being missed as a result of the town being instrumental, as it's been my experience that a lot of people, regardless of residents or not, are more willing to donate time, donate funds to an organization, more so than donating time and money to the town itself. And so we may want to really take a look with strategic planning when we look at the event process in itself, and see if there's ways to improve on that and engage a level of volunteer base, so it's not paid staff who are looking after these things.
So then the discussion isn't going to simply be about the bandstand, it'll be about the bandstand, Canada Day, Boardwalk Days, Harvest Fest, Show and Shine, all of those kinds of events. I think we need to have more of a collective discussion about that in terms of costs, benefits, how much we're doing, how much volunteer groups can be doing. And what the vision survey says from our community. I really hope that lots of people have filled that out so that we can hear from them what they want to be seeing happening here, what they want to be paying for and not paying for. Councillor Kozlowski.
Is there anything that's happened with the 50-50 yet? Or is that going to go on this year?
So the challenge that we're having is the internet connection. So I've been reaching out. Valley Fiber has just sent me an update today that they are delayed. They expected by August 15th everybody to be connected. Now they've bumped that to August 31st, specifically in reference to the town's internet connection that we can channel at the bandstand. I have not received a specific reply on that item. It sounded when we did meet with Valley Fiber that it was going to be a very non-issue, and that we expected that internet service at the bandstand within a couple of weeks, and that did not transpire. And so until I have internet capability at that location, we can't move forward with that initiative. So it's just contingent on that. Okay. Be it resolved that council accept the committee reports as presented.
Need a mover, please? Councillor Jarvis. Seconder, please. Councillor Poole. Discussion. I'm assuming everybody had an opportunity to read all the committee reports. Any questions or comments about any of them? In terms of the council roundtable discussion, just to let people know that myself and Councillor Jarvis.
Carried?
No, this is isn't that part of the committee?
No, this is the council.
It says
The internal committees?
council committee and board approve. Okay. Okay. All in favor? Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, council.
Oh, for God's sakes. Yeah, okay. Go ahead, read it.
So just the round table discussion.
Don't we have to?
There's no resolution for the round table discussion. There'll be a resolution after the round table discussion for the committee board reports.
Just let people know that Councillor Jarvis and I have been meeting in terms of getting a newsletter together. And we're at this point looking at 4 times a year and getting lots of input from local folks in the community in terms of the events and things that are going on for them, the Legion, the Curling Club, those kinds of things. Some of the things that we've been brainstorming. And Councillor Jarvis, please jump in on the conversation if you remember. Getting information from Public Works, getting information from Rec, getting information from safety tips, emergency responses, a volunteer section. Councillor Jarvis came up with a kindness corner, which I thought was isn't that nice?
Isn't that nice?
Yeah.
Isn't that kind of you?
Yeah.
A kindness corner, that's great.
Yeah, a kindness corner. Sort of like a coffee news kind of thing. So it's not going to be sort of little shining, pamphlets we put in the tax inserts. It's going to be more like the coffee news you can get. And as opposed to incurring any costs in terms of going through the paper or even the post office, making a bunch of copies available at restaurants and Park Place and post office and all those kinds of places. We can be including notices and announcement, upcoming events, information on things like Meals on Wheels, getting snow shoveling angels to come out and help during the winter if you got seniors who can't shovel their own walks. And just a newsletter to bring the community more together and to increase communication between community members and between council and our community. So stay tuned for that. We've had our first meeting. We are waiting to hear back from a few folks, and we will be having subsequent meetings and hoping to have the first newsletter out by, I was saying the end of August, because we wanted to do some things in conjunction with the school in terms of getting, school supplies for kids who might not be able to afford, or coats for kids. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to pull that off, but maybe by mid-September, do you think?
Well, we can't get at the school till at least September the 5th.
Well, that's when the school opens, but often administration comes in a week or two before.
Yeah, if we can get in there, we might
If we can
not,
get in there.
might not be able to have an audience with anybody, but.
Right. So we're still working on that, and if anybody has any other ideas in
We
terms
also talked about the sports programs too, for some of the underprivileged people, to
That's right.
get into some of the, somehow manage to get people who don't, if they have equipment that's lying around and things, then maybe we can make that available to people.
Yeah. So they can bring their used skates or hockey
And
equipment.
some of the things that we talked about with the Larry Park, et cetera,
Community
community gardens. So, and I guess, and Pam's already, Mayor Jackson's already expressed it 4 times. And we think right now 4 times the seasonality of it, the spring, the summer, the fall, the winter issue. Because different things happen to us. And especially, our demographics change dramatically every 3 months. So we have people come and go all the time. So I think it's going to be good. And again, we've mentioned aging. We're in an aging environment here, and some of these people just don't, getting their driveway shoveled to get their mail. It might be as simple as just picking them up and getting the mail. If we can get volunteers, et cetera, people to do that. So to check in on people.
So we're going to be continuing to meet, and if anybody has any other suggestions in terms of what else could be going in the newsletter. So we're looking at getting it printed up like this, so it's going to be sort of like a booklet with calendar on the back with the events happening throughout our community. Councilor
I
Kozlowski.
would also suggest, besides restaurants, community center, to do a mail out. Because not everybody goes to restaurants, community centers, et cetera. When I did my pamphlets and that, it was about $90 for a mail out to, $900.
Yeah.
So 9 times 4, you're looking at $360 for
Okay.
for
So we're
mail
looking
outs.
into that.
Yeah, I was going to say, and they could sign up for mail-in. Subscribe. If they can't pick, as Larry says, pick it up, then they could subscribe, phone in, and then we make sure we get it out to them.
The other thing we can do is also see if we can work with the post office and see if we can put a pile there. Everybody comes to get their mail, right?
Yeah, we could bag
Everybody
stuff
goes
them
to
through
Park
the,
Place.
yeah, if they phone in and say, look, I'm unable, then we could bag stuff it in their mail for them.
Okay. Now do we have a resolution?
Be it hereby resolved that council approves the council committee and board reports as
Okay.
presented.
Okay, point taken. Mover please. Councilor Jarvis. Seconder please. Councilor Kozlowski. All in favor? Carried.
Be it hereby resolved that the correspondence be accepted as circulated or
Presented.
yeah, but it's either just as circulated. I don't know why it or
I don't know
presented
why
is there.
that. Okay. Need a mover, please. Councilor Jarvis. Need a seconder, please. Councilor Kozlowski. Trust everybody has had an opportunity to read the correspondence. Any questions, comments, or points of discussion about any of the correspondence? All in favor? Carried.
Be it hereby resolved that council moves in camera at 7:21 PM to discuss matters that are in the preliminary stages, and be it further resolved that any matters discussed while in camera be held confidential until such time as discussed in open council.
Bring the mover, please. Councillor Jarvis. A seconder, please. Councillor Cool. All in favor? Carried.
Mic is on, camera's on.
Be it hereby resolved that council moves out of camera at 8:24 PM and resumes the regular meeting of council.
Move it, please. Councillor Jarvis. Seconder, please. Councillor Hu. All in favor?
Be it hereby resolved that council adjourns the August 9th, 2023 regular meeting at 8:24 PM.
And mover, please. Councillor Jarvis. Seconder, please. Councillor Kozlowski. All in favor? Carried.